today we are talking about life list. Do you know what a life list is? Do you have a life list? A life list is, and then of course we're going to be talking about life list of birds, but a life list is a list that some people keep of every type of, insert here, bird or butterfly or mammal or train or Camaro, or you can have a life list of just about anything. Obviously, bird watchers, when you get into bird watching, we keep up with the birds we've seen, and it starts as simple as possible, and then it tends to grow, and it can get as complicated as you want to. Some of the questions, the reason we're doing this program is I had some questions this week about this, and they were asking me, how many birds are on my life list, and what are there official rules to keeping a life list, etc. And I've done entire hour-long classes about life listing, and we can do that. But I thought today what we would do is just kind of give you an idea of what life lists are, and basically how to get started with them, and things you want to do when you get started that you will really appreciate later on if you do get into it heavier, if you do traveling and things like that. So a life list can be as simple as, and most of you may already have this type of life list, but you may in your basic field guides, by the picture of a bird, say Baltimore Oriole, you may have a check mark by that picture in your book. And then on the northern cardinal, you have a check mark by that. That is a life list. You're keeping up with what birds that you've seen. Now, there are many different degrees of life list. That might just be the birds you've seen in your yard, in your backyard, because you want to keep up with that. So the life list takes on a life of itself, and it really grows. So I'm going to kind of take you through my progression as to how I got it with mine, and see if any of these interest you in the future. So I started the same way. I started with my field guide I had in college. I started, and I officially started my life list in the summer of 1983, which was when I really got hooked on bird watching. And I was doing the same thing. I was just putting those check marks by the pictures in the book as we were learning them and learning to identify them. But something happened to me. I got, I obviously got more interested in birds, and I wanted to see more birds. And I realized that, hey, this is getting complicated. So I started writing in the date, by the check mark, the date that I saw it. Well, the next thing you know, our van was broken into on a field trip at school, and that field guide, my binoculars, and some notes got stolen. And so I was like, uh-oh, this kind of proved to me how vulnerable my life list was, and how good your memory is versus where you've written it down. So what I did is I bought a Lifeless Journal, and this is one of my most prized possessions in my life. I keep this thing very safe at home. I started when I said, okay, now I really need to get started, keep a better track of my life list. And so when I bought this book, and the book provides, a place for you to enter sightings. Oh, I got lots of old checklists in there too. But black tern, right, just on this page right here. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it tells me I saw it on June 1st in 1993 was the first time I saw that bird, and my location at Cheyenne Bottoms. And I've also seen it at a couple other places listed in there. And then one of the other cool things is at the back of the journal, it has where you can list your birds out from the first bird I ever saw all the way through. And this is really handy, especially if you start seeing a lot of different birds. You really need to keep up with this. A more in-depth thing that I wanted to do is, of course, I wanted to get them in the right order, so I had to pick a starting point in my life. Now, I remember, northern cardinals and American robins and northern mockingbirds from my youth, so they were automatically my first birds I ever knew. But then I started in June of 1983, which when I considered myself, starting the bird watching, that's when I started listing, and I've tried to keep up with in order that I saw them. And the sooner you start this one through the list, the better. Now, some people use an Excel spreadsheet. That works too, or just a simple computer spreadsheet. You can have the category for the name and then the date and the location. Have you photographed it or not? Might be something you want to keep up with. And so your life list takes on, like I said, a life of your own. It gets as personal as you want it to be. The question about are there official rules? Yes, there are and there aren't. Yeah, if you want to compare your life list to mine and say, oh, well, I've got 5 more birds than you do on your life list, Mark. Well, you have to go, if you want to do that, you need to obey official rules. And listing rules are by the American Birding Association. And of course, each state has its own list that is officially kept by a committee of experts who accept it. So if I go, oh, well, I saw a California condor in my yard, and so that's on my life list. Well, there's never been a California condor sighting in the state of Missouri. How did you see that in your list? Well, it's on my list. So I've got one more than you do. So that's where official lists come into play. And if you want to compare apples to apples, you need to obey by the rules that everybody does. Now, most people don't do that. Most people just want to keep, their own personal list, and that is it. Hey, I have known people who kept lists of all the birds they've seen in zoos as well as in the wild. I had a friend who actually counted a bird on her life list because she had a dream about it, and the dream was so vivid and so real, she counted it on her life list. So that's fine, and that's her personal list. If that's her rules to herself, then you can do that. But the most important thing is the details, and if you really, really want to get a whole lot of it, I thought I had a question coming.
You do. Do you carry that book in the store?
We have, the question was, do I have this book in the store? We do now have the newest version of that, which is Sibley's Life List and Journal. David Allen Sibley is now the father of the field guide, and this is a really great book. And it's very much set up the same way. It has the, I'm getting close, but it's got the individual birds where you can write in, and then it's got the check marks in the back, and then you've got the listing as well as this one. So very much the same one. There's lots of different journals on the market. I like Sibley's a whole lot. I don't think they make this one. Cornell made this one for years. I had the second version of it, but I never did use it. This is completely blank. So I think I bought this for Melanie maybe, and then we never did get going on it. Because one of the things that happens with paper and is that they become obsolete, because now we use a computer program. And computer programs are fantastic for this. I was getting ready to grab my phone and show you my phone, but that's what's doing the filming. The apps on phones can keep up with your life list on it. eBird, which is a great program that you submit your sightings to officials so they can keep up with bird sightings all across the world. That will keep up with your life list for you. So there's lots of ways to do it. But if you really want to get pretty complex, and you have a complicated life list, this, I don't know how well you can see this. Matthew was talking about maybe needing to zoom in on it, but this is a program called Birder's Diary. Ruth and I both use this program. I think Mary uses it too. There's several of us who do. And the great thing about a computer program is, one, you're always constantly backing it up, so you have backup copies, and that's very safe rather than just one book. But you set the program up initially, and it keeps up with multiple lists for you. So the most important thing in this is your location tree. So I have my backyard is in there. Platte County is in there. It hooks to Platte County. That hooks to Missouri. That hooks to the lower 48 states. That hooks to the world. So when I enter one sighting, it automatically puts it in all these lists. And you see these bars that are on the screen. The green bar all the way out, that's how many species have been officially documented in the world versus in out here to the end, the world versus the state of Missouri versus all the way down. And then the green bars are what I have seen compared to the world. I mean, this is Missouri, I do believe. This is the lower 48. This is the whole United States, North America, and that's the world. So you can see I've only seen 820 species in the world, where I can see 10,000. So, but the computer program is wonderful if you are going to grow as a hobby. If you're going to increase your list and you want to enter it and really keep track of it, a computer program really is very, very nice, and it's worth paying a little extra for a good one. By the way, there's my yard list, 68 species in my yard. Ruth is a lot higher than I am in her yard. And then I have Platte County down, and because it's where I live, and then the state of Missouri. So again, you can get as involved with this as you want to, and we can do a whole class on this topic. Ruth and I are always willing to talk about it when you come in the store and ask us questions, because we've been keeping our life list for a long, long time. So, well, I tell you, it's very rewarding to me. I had I did a class on it one time, and I had a guy come up to me after the class, and he said, after listening to this, I've decided I'm not going to keep a life list because I think it would degrade from my enjoyment of the hobby. That's fine. That was his feelings toward it. But for me, it is a great part of what driving me and what I love, to compete against myself, and you can keep year list, and did I do better than I did last year, and there's bars on here that tells me what I saw last year versus this year. So it is absolutely wonderful. Got another question?
Yeah, Beth is asking, could you provide links to the computer programs you're talking about?
I can go on after the program. Yeah, and Birder's Diary is the name. If you just want to do a Google search on Birder's Diary, it'll bring up that program. And it was originally Thayer's Birding Software's life listing program, and then it kind of split off of that. And it's out of Florida. I know that. Jeff Jones is the guy who runs it, and he has. There's multiple lists that you can buy from him, and it'll all the birds of the world, all the birds of the United States, all the birds of different states. They have, like I said, butterflies, mammals, reptiles, and amphibians. He has all these lists that you can acquire, and you can keep up with all these things. It's pretty darn cool. If you're a nature nerd like I am, Birder's Diary is a must, a mainstay of what I do. And if you've ever been on one of my hikes, and you see my list that I post on the Facebook after a Thursday morning bird hike or a Saturday, Sunday bird hike, that list is generated through this program right here. It's what I use it to. I enter those birds into data, then I can generate the checklist in there, or the printout list. So that's where that comes from. So, a neat program. I know this was not for everybody. I know a lot of people are, it's not like this topic on hummingbirds or something like this, but people have been asking about life lists, and I got more people getting involved in birding at a little higher level, which is pretty cool. So, well, send in ideas for future programs. Give us a like. Please share the programs. That helps us out a lot. And until then, come by. Let's talk birds.